Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchStrats. This is Show and thank you for joining me for another TAC review where we look at one of the many strategy games on the Switch and break down its tactics, AI, and cheese. Today I am excited to be talking about one of my favorite RPGs on the Switch. Unfortunately, I feel it was a bit overshadowed, especially as it was released in 2020, so I'm happy to elucidate a bit more on this hidden gem, Banner of the Maid. Banner of the Maid, first released on PC Steam in 2019 by Chinese developer Azure Flame Studio, is an interesting take on turn-based strategy RPG games cut from the same vein as Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. The game centers around Pauline Bonaparte, the sister of the famed Napoleon Bonaparte, as she embarks on a journey to lead the French to victory during the French Revolution. During this time, she starts learning the truth about a long-fabled rumor about the power of the Maid, which is said to appear during times of great chaos to save the lives of the people. For the visuals, it uses sprites and feels a lot like Final Fantasy Tactics, which is possibly my favorite strategy RPG of all time. Audio is solid, offering some nice tracks to battle to. Performance-wise, I have never had any issues docked or handheld. It's a really smooth port in my opinion, running honestly amazingly on both handheld and docked. So let's take a look at the tactics. The game is a standard fare grid-based tactical RPG. Units occupy a square and are given the ability to move and act once a turn. Movement and attack ranges are contingent on the unit's class, abilities, and equipped items. Weather and fog of war are also introduced during some levels that can impact accuracy and your line of sight. An environmental effect is also in play, allowing you to gain or lose bonuses based on the type of terrain you are on. Additionally, a limit break function known as morale can be gained by landing hits on the enemy. Once the morale gauge is maxed, you can unleash a heroic attack. That is a special attack that cannot be countered. Units themselves are scripted in a sense, so you are only able to recruit them as the story unfolds. There is no original or custom unit creation. On the topic of units, each character has a class of units that it belongs to, in a unit diamond, which is introduced early on. The diamond is broken down as Riflemen, Heavy Cavalry, Light Cavalry, Scout. Additionally, Cannoneers and Bands are specialist units that fall outside of the diamond as they provide more supportive effects in combat, however, can be routed fairly easily if maneuvered incorrectly. Keeping an eye out on the types of units you'll be against every battle, as well as balancing your unit options, is the key to progress in this game. To see the diamond at work, we can look at the main heroine, Pauline. Pauline is considered a rifle class, therefore she is only able to use rifles which are effective against heavy cavalry. This will allow her to gain extra accuracy, dodge, and attack against heavy cavalry. However, this makes her weak to scouts, which gives the opposite effect when in combat. Additionally, all units have access to abilities through leveling or the ability trainer on the overworld map. Abilities vary, with many offering passive stat bonuses and some occasional action abilities. In the game, there are 7 main stats: attack for damage, defense and armor to reduce damage, speed for dodge and multi-hits, movement distance, leadership for morale boosts, and scouting for hit chance. Furthermore, after a unit reaches a certain level, it can class up to become even more powerful, granting enhanced stats and new abilities. Therefore, balancing these stats based on the unit's natural strengths are an overall good idea when choosing abilities. From a personal opinion, movement, dodge, and accuracy abilities tend to offer the best results. A unit's attacks are solely based on what items are equipped on the unit. All units can equip up to 6 items, and each item has a limited number of uses. Once the item runs out, it disappears from your inventory and must be purchased or obtained again. To note, weapons with at least 1 use remaining at the end of the battle recover all uses after the battle. Consumable recovery items like bread and wine do not. so it's important to consider at what time should you be using your items. Weapons themselves seem to be fairly balanced. For instance, a standard musket can only attack a single square on each side, whereas the experimental rifle can attack a range of 3, including diagonals. The catch is, the experimental rifle has less attack power than the standard musket. Now, there are different rarities or levels for items. In principle, the higher the rarity, the more powerful it is. The game also incorporates an affinity system of sorts with the various groups of the French Revolution. At different parts of the story, you will be given choices that increase the affinity of certain factions. By increasing affinity, you will be able to unlock new items for purchase in various shops run by each group. These items include new weapons, accessories, and consumable items that are a must when in battle. It is possible to max all affinities in one playthrough without much trouble, as you can check the progress in your menu. It's also important to note that free missions for grinding can also be unlocked through this system. Overall, Banner of the Maid doesn't provide much of a twist on the typical strategy RPG, however, provides a solid experience that is familiar for veterans, but easy to learn for newer players. I decided to go for normal on my first run, and the game started off fairly tame by providing some easy to follow tutorials to introduce the basics of the game. As each stage went on, additional minor tips were provided. However, it occurred to me quickly that the game wants you to pay close attention to what it says. During one of the early missions, Pauline, during the cutscene, explains what the plan of attack is to her troops. Once the mission began, I very quickly went off ahead to get some kills and rightfully found myself with a game over screen after the first round. Then it hit me that the strategy in the cutscene was the actual way to win the map. This is generally repeated throughout the rest of the missions with some minor variations. This may be a turnoff to some people who feel it limits your creativity, but rest assured, even in normal mode, the game wants you to think. The AI on normal will heavily exploit the unit diamond, with many maps containing units that are naturally stronger than what you may have available. For this reason, the commentary or strategy briefing before the mission reflects the overall approach to win. However, it requires the player to exert caution in how they position and move their units. Furthermore, the AI will take advantage of their abilities and will try to exhaust your item resources. For instance, thieves double item consumption when used against them. There have been instances when the AI deliberately forced counterattacks on my units, causing them to burn through the number of uses of my unit's weapon. Overall, the AI in Banner of the Maid does very well in providing a good challenge for veterans early on and in the late game. Newbies may find the AI challenging at times. However, as long as you pay attention to the strategy briefings at the start of the levels, you'll find a way. Alright, time for the cheese. Hands down, there is one unit type that can trivialize the whole game. This unit type, when built with a few specific abilities and some powerful weapons, can nearly dodge every attack and then double attack back to any unit. That unit type is the Scout, specifically Adelaide and Cosette. When you first receive them, they don't appear to be too out of the ordinary. However, after a few levels and some extra skills, they can solo maps alone. Adelaide has the Skirmisher and Intelligence Gathering skills, which boost dodge upwards to plus 50. Combine that with the Mocking skill that gives plus 20 moral for every dodge, and the Heroic Reload that doubles turns after using a heroic attack, she can basically keep getting double turns as she'll just dodge everything and gain massive amounts of morale. Cosette can have a similar build. However, she gains a lot of attack boosts and many skills to stop terrain penalties. This allows her to move long distances and deal massive damage during weather-based stages, or on stages with troublesome terrain. Bands can also be extremely broken, not so much as they are the only healing units in the game, but due to the fact that they function like dancers from Fire Emblem. That is to say, they can buff, debuff, and grant extra turns to other units. Eugene in particular is a mounted band, which gives her a long movement distance. This is great for setups as you can have your scouts attack hard. Then, once their turn is up, Eugene can rush in and grant one another turn. Therefore, make sure you really focus on developing these 3 units if you're looking to ease the challenge. Despite the typicality of this game, Banner of the Maid is a really solid strategy RPG that fans of the genre are sure to love, especially those who love Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre. The story is just interesting enough to keep invested, and the combat, while straightforward to veterans, is a fun experience when considering the AI's abilities. For new players to the genre, I would say you'll likely find some frustrations if you're not playing on easy mode, especially when considering the AI's challenging playstyle on normal. However, if you're able to get a good idea of the mechanics and play more cautiously, it's a sound game that lets you experience an interesting take on the French Revolution. Okay, again, thank you so much for making it through this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you played Banner of the Maid, please feel free to comment your experiences below. I always enjoy reading the comments on the videos, so I'd love to discuss this game more with everyone. As always, this is Sho, and remember, when you're on the fence, just remember to switch strats. Cheers!